Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am so happy to have you here. My name is Stephanie and I love to talk about horse stuff and share my adventures with my draft horse fame. Today I thought we would talk about horse for sale ads. So I thought I'd give you my take on a lot of these very commonly used terms and phrases to help you with your horse buying journey. Websites that I typically like to use when I'm horse shopping is Dream Horse. If you're looking for a draft, I would check out Drafts for Sale. Equine Now is very common, Horse Clicks is very common, and these days Facebook groups are kind of where it's at as well, especially if you're looking for a very specific breed or type of horse. You can actually find a lot of people that are sort of maybe thinking about selling their horse and they're not wanting to bother with the whole full ad video thing, and so they just kind of go straight to Facebook. It's really important for you to vet that horse personally. Make sure that if the seller says a horse can do certain things or doesn't do certain things, that you get actual demonstrated proof of that, because just because something is listed in an ad doesn't necessarily make it true. All right, so let's get some of the real basic stuff out of the way first. WTC or W/T/C stands for walk, trot, canter. You may also see a huge string of words together very commonly, which is clips, loads, ties, bathes, and stands. And that basically means that that horse has experience and is comfortable with all of those things: being clipped, loading into a horse trailer, tying either next to the trailer or at a hitching post for somewhat long periods of time, bathing, obviously, and then stands refers to a horse that will stand quietly for the farrier, which is super important because farriers will sometimes charge you an extra fee if your horse is difficult to deal with. A horse who knows his leads. This refers to the canter or the lope. A horse that knows how to pick up the right foot when they are going into that particular gait. Now, why is this important? Why does this even matter? Well, if you're doing a lot of work in an arena where you're going around in circles, it's actually super important that a horse knows how to pick up the correct lead because it protects their physiology and their body. There is centrifugal force that pulls that horse to the center of that circle. It's why you see that cool party trick where someone can pull a ball up into a glass, right? That's centrifugal force. And so it becomes really important that a horse is picking up their inside front leg to help stabilize and put their body in correct alignment to counteract that force. And so if you're competing or if you're doing arena work, and just in general, it's good for a horse to eventually learn to pick up the correct lead. So if you see a horse that's advertised as knowing his leads, that just means that that horse knows how to pick up the correct lead, the correct leg, depending on which direction he's going in a circle. You may also see a lot of acronyms like AQHA, APHA. These are all acronyms for breed associations. So this implies that the horse is registered. This is a papered horse, and of course it will automatically tell you the breed of that horse. So you may just see an ad for AQHA 12-year-old gelding. Basically, they're telling you that is an American Quarter Horse Association registered quarter horse. If you are looking for a specific breed, if it is really important to you to have a papered horse or to have a particular breed of horse, you want to figure out what the breed associations or the registrations for that breed are and specifically be looking for that. Now, if you don't see any of those acronyms, then there's a possibility that that horse is what they call a grade horse. A grade horse is a horse of unknown or unpapered lineage. And usually grade horses will command a lower price because, again, they don't have that paperwork. But that does not mean that they don't make fabulous horses. They can make wonderful sound companions. And my first horse was actually a grade quarter horse cross of some kind that I purchased off of Craigslist. A push button horse. This is a horse that is highly trained, knows its cues, responds right away. I think the term just comes from this idea that you can get on and it's as simple as pushing a button. It's an automatic experience. The term schoolmaster I typically see used in the English world, specifically in dressage. And this is basically a horse with a lot of experience and training that has achieved a very high level in its discipline. An in-your-pocket horse is a phrase that usually in my experience is meant to be extremely positive. This is a horse who is friendly, who likes to be around people, who solicits for affection, who bonds very closely to its owner, will follow you around, and essentially kind of be in your back pocket is where the phrase comes from. I do think, however, it is important to be mindful that there could be a flip side to a horse like that. I've noticed that sometimes people will say a horse is in your pocket, and in my perception, it almost kind of seems like that horse maybe doesn't have a lot of ground manners or is not super respectful of the person's space. And this can be a very individual thing. Some people like having their horse right here, or they don't mind it. Some people, though, really don't like that and feel like it's a safety issue to have a horse encroaching on their personal space. So if you are looking at a horse that's in your pocket, again, typically it's meant to be a positive, a good thing. But I would also just be aware that people have different perceptions about what kind of personal space and personal bubble they like with their horses. A forward horse. This is basically a horse that likes to move out, likes to go. I would describe my horse Fame as being a forward horse. As soon as I get on him, he is ready to go. And when he does go, he moves out. Now, there's a difference between a forward horse and a horse that hasn't learned how to stand when you get on. So that's a training thing. All horses should learn how to stand when you get on and not just immediately take off with you. But in general, a forward horse is a horse that likes to move out and likes to go and maybe tends to have a little bit more speed. Forward horses are generally marketed for more experienced or at least intermediate riders, because when you're a beginner, it can be really overwhelming to have a horse that just immediately likes to go or is very sensitive to your cues. And while we're on that subject, let's talk about the phrase intermediate rider recommended. Like a lot of these terms, it's very subjective, and I do think it warrants a conversation with the seller about what exactly they mean. Now, if you are brand new to horses and really don't know much of anything the way I was when I first got started, I probably wouldn't even be considering ads that say intermediate rider recommended. I would probably be sticking strictly to horses that are marketed for beginners. Intermediate rider recommended could mean a horse that either just doesn't have a lot of training yet. It could mean that the horse maybe has some behavioral issues that need work. It could mean a horse that is very forward and likes to go, has the potential for a lot of speed, which could be dangerous if you don't have a secure seat. This could also be a horse that's just extremely sensitive, and when you're a beginner, you're not always completely aware of what your body's doing. You could end up with a difficult relationship and maybe some dangerous situations if you're paired with an extremely sensitive horse. So there's a lot of reasons why it could say intermediate rider recommended. Oftentimes they will elaborate in the ad, but if not, and you think that you might be a good candidate for that horse, it's definitely worth talking to the seller to find out more of why they say that. Now, I mentioned green. Green is yet another one of those phrases that has a wide umbrella, and depending on who you talk to, people use that term differently. Generally speaking, I would say most people would agree that a green horse is a horse that just doesn't have a lot of training and doesn't have a lot of experience at this point in their life. At what point a horse no longer becomes green is where the waters get a little bit murky. 30 days of training, I would definitely say, is still a green horse. When you get into maybe 6 months of training, maybe not so much at that point. It really, again, depends on who you talk to. I have seen some blogs where people are like, yeah, I consider my horse green until they are completely finished and have X number years of experience, which is probably a more extreme example of what someone would classify as a green horse. So again, this warrants a conversation with the seller to find out exactly how much training that horse has truly had and what kind of experience and exposure that horse has had in life. Just to share my personal experience with my current horse, Fame, I purchased him with 30 days of training only, and he was marketed as a green horse. When I invested in some full-time training for him recently, after, I would say, about 6 months of full-time training and hitting the trails, I did ask my trainer, I said, hey, would you still say he's green? And he said, no, I wouldn't say he's green, but I wouldn't say he's a finished horse either. So that was just my personal experience, but again, depending on the discipline, depending on the horse, depending on the intensity and frequency of the training and exposure they're getting, that term green could really vary. So there isn't a set number of months of training or a specific criteria of experience per se that automatically bumps them from one category to the other. Ready to take in whatever direction you desire. I love this phrase because it's so positive and it's such great sales language, and it's basically another way of describing a green horse. This is a very positive way for the seller to say, hey, you know, this horse hasn't had a whole lot of experience or training in one direction. So if you were to buy this horse, they're kind of like a blank slate in the sense that you could take them in whatever direction you desire. Again, if you are a beginner shopping for a horse, this is probably not the right horse for you, because you want a horse that has extensive training and experience in whatever discipline that you're looking to get involved in. I see a lot of ads saying that a horse rides English and Western. Personally, I am always kind of boggled by this claim because from my limited experience, English and Western are extremely different disciplines. Not only is the tack very different, but the position that you ride in, the way you manage your reins, a lot of big things are very different. And for a horse to be skilled in both, I think takes a lot of years and a lot of experience. But sometimes I wonder if when they say that, it just basically means that they've swapped saddles and swapped bits and the horse did fine both ways, and that's how they're claiming that this horse rides English and Western. I think it's just a way for the seller to say that this horse has the potential to go in a multitude of different directions. One thing you see really commonly on a lot of these ads is a scale, a temperament scale that ranges from 1 to 10. Personally, I'm not sure how helpful these scales are. I kind of use them as one component in the overall picture of that horse's ad. It's a very subjective measurement. The seller could be incorporating a lot of different things into that evaluation. There are a lot of things that could make a horse change on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of how their energy or temperament is perceived. Training, age, how forward that horse is, energy level, spookiness or reactivity. But because it's so subjective, I don't know that there's really a whole lot of benefit other than going, okay, well, this horse is a 1 versus this horse is a 5. There's clearly a difference there. But the difference between a 2 versus a 3 or a 7 versus an 8, Now, have I missed anything? Are there other phrases that you would like to see me do another video on? Do you disagree with some of the things I've said, or do you have more information that you could expound upon on any one of these terms? Definitely leave me a comment down below. If you found this video helpful, I would really appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up. And if you're interested in more videos on what to look for as you're shopping for a horse, I would definitely check out this playlist right here. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.